I needed to update my Chrome, and because of that, it wasn't allowing my screen to share. So that was the problem, but hopefully everyone's been able to get on tonight. I am recording this webinar, so for anyone who wasn't able to make it or anyone that wants to come back and take another look, you're able to do that. For today, we are in Zoom, so that allows us to be a little more interactive. If people do want to ask questions, you can either cut me off and come off of mute, or you can put them in the chat box and I'll respond to them at the end. I do ask everyone though that if you're not asking a question, to just keep your microphone on mute, because we do have a bunch of people that are on today. So with that, I am going to get going. And so run gait analysis. So just a little bit about me. I joined Outrival Racing and the Run Formula of about 3 seasons ago, and have been coaching triathlon and running and cycling for the past 11 years now. And I've been a competitive cyclist and runner and triathlete for a couple of decades. And so run analysis is just something that always was really interesting to me. And so I've been taking a deeper dive into it lately, and just want to share what I've learned and how it can help with your running technique. So starting out with our 5 training cornerstones here. So Gait, this relates to how we train and then our execution on race day. So as a general overview here, this is basically what we're going to go through today. First of all, why are running mechanics important? How you capture the video. So what camera angles you take, what kind of camera you need, and then how you analyze the video. And today I know we have a mix of coaches and athletes on here. So I'm going to show you how to do some actual measurements, but also as we go through things to just tell you, like if you're not, don't have the software to be able to do the measurements, that there's a lot that you can see from just looking at a video and putting it in slow motion or pausing on screens. Then we'll talk about what potential limiters are and how you can address them. And then I will finish up by talking about advanced running metrics. And here I will focus on what's available to you on a Garmin watch, just because that's what most people use, but there's definitely other watches that have run metric information on them. Okay, so running speed comes down to 2 things: your stride rate and your stride length. So what's your cadence and how far forward do you go with each step? So to get faster, you need to improve one or both of those. And running form definitely impacts both of these, probably at least for the beginner runners. It's going to impact your stride rate, your cadence first, but it definitely has an impact on both of them. So you can improve your running speed by working on your run technique. So the importance of strong mechanics, I just mentioned here, increased speed is one of them. Reduced fatigue. So as the race goes on, if you have good mechanics, you're less likely to fatigue and have that affect your running, and then also reduce likelihood of injury. And that's probably the one that's most important to stop with, because if we have bad mechanics and we end up with an injury, then we can't run anymore. And that's something that we want to avoid. If you have good mechanics, you can run forever without injury. Okay, so I'm going to start first with capturing the videos. So first of all, you don't need anything special to take videos. I took all the videos, all the screenshots I'm using here they're done from videos off of my iPhone. So nothing special at all. You just go ahead and take them. You don't need a professional photographer. My 8-year-old son did the videos on everything. So you really don't need much. So this part's pretty easy. You want to look at basically 3 views when you look at it. So the front view is you're having someone stand out in front of you and you're running towards them. and you just take, 10 seconds of video just as someone runs towards you. Then the side views. So you want to look at both sides, because one of the things that you want to focus on when you look at run mechanics is if you have differences, one side versus the other. So you want to take both sides. And here, if you are doing these outdoors, you probably want to do a few different takes of the side view, because you only you go by that screen pretty fast. And so you want to make sure that you have enough frames that you're able to look at things. If you're on a treadmill, then it's not as much of an issue. You can just run the film for longer. And then a rear view. So from behind, you'll just run by the person with the camera and then have them take you from rear view. The last one is a bird's eye view. And this is some physical therapy offices will have these. Most people won't have access to it, but bird's eye is from the top. And on that, you can see things like rotation and arm swing and stuff, but you really can, see, when I do the analysis, I'm just looking at front, side, and rear view. Okay, so considerations when you're taking the video. And I want to premise this by saying that there's no right answer on here, like universal right answer. It really depends on how you're going to use the video and what you're looking for. So the things that you want to consider are what speed are you going to do this? Like right now, you're in your off season, so most of your runs are in Z1. So do you want to be taking your film, you're looking at your technique while you're in that like easier run pace, or do you want to do it? Are you like, if you're training for a 5K, you're going to want to look at your film, at that pace. If you're doing Ironman, pacing. So you're basically doing it at the speed that's going to be most helpful to you. And that's the goal. Some people's technique changes with different speeds. So if you think that you're one of those people, then you might want to do something at like an easier run and something with some speed to it. So again, it's just a question of what you're trying to look at. So if your question is, what does my run form look like when I'm running a 5K, then you shouldn't take the footage going at Ironman pace. So, okay. So then the next question is fresh or fatigued. So do you want to do something like just, off the blocks where you're going, or is it an issue where you're like, hey, you know what? I know my run to like 5 miles into every run, I start getting really bad cramps. If that's the case, then you want to do your filming of 5 miles into your run to see what's going on. I mean, do it at the beginning, but then do it 5 miles in to see if anything's changed in your technique. Open runner off the bike. This is, relevant if you're a triathlete. You probably want to look at your run after you've come off the bike, because the bike has this wonderful ability to tighten up our hip flexors, which is going to affect your run gait. So that's something to think about. What shoes you're wearing. So if you're looking, like you want to see what your run looks like under race conditions, and you want to wear the shoes that you wear during a race. And then the last one here is on treadmill or road. And you can film on both. Let's just start out by saying that. If right now you do like all of your running on the treadmill, then at this point, if you wanted to look at your run technique, then the treadmill is a good place to do that. If you mostly do your running on the road, then it makes no sense to come in and get on the treadmill and do that, because your technique is going to be different on both, and you can easily film on the road and it works just fine. So this is, again, the questions that you go through when you're looking at these different factors, is to say what's going to be most useful to me based on what I want to learn. And that then becomes the right answer for you. Okay, so when we analyze the video, you can make yourself crazy looking at too many things. So what I've tried to do is sort of reduce what you look at to some basic things, starting out at the feet and working your way up to the head. First of all, though, is just your overall impression. Like, don't get yourself caught in the weeds before you look at the overall, what does your body look like? And because you can look at someone and be like, wow, they look strong, or, oh, look, they're crumpled over, or whatever. So just get that overall assessment first. And then we're going to go through and look at specific things, starting with foot strike and finishing at head position. Okay, so there's 3 potential limiters to, if you have, like, after you looked at your video, and we'll come back and talk about this later, but if there's something in your technique that could use improvement, then it's usually due to one of three things. Either it's strength, so you don't have the strength that you need to get into the proper, to get into an improved run gait. And that is not, usually we think running and we think, okay, quads and big muscles in your glutes, hamstrings. It's actually like the lateral muscles that are more important here, the supporting muscles, so the non-primary muscles. And then we're looking at like the hip flexors, gluteus medius, the TFL muscle on the side, and then also your core strength is a big limiter for running for some people. And then the next one is range of motion or flexibility. And the two areas that we really look at most here for flexibility are your hip flexor muscles and your calf, the soleus muscle in your calf. But there's also some other things. Flexibility through your chest is going to impact your ability to have a nice upper body position. And then the third thing is cognitive. Sometimes when you talk to people about running form, they don't know that they're supposed to actually do something, so the first thing is to have this appreciation of, oh, I didn't realize that my arms were supposed to be bent this much, or, oh, I didn't realize that I was supposed to try to keep my feet under my body. So some of it is cognitive, and some of it is, oh, I didn't realize that when I get really tired, this is what happens to me. So it's sort of like your mind-body connection that you pull in. So sometimes just looking at the video and having people you see, or having, if you're working with a client, having them see what's going on starts already helping with that third element. Okay, so we're going to start getting into the nitty gritties here, and I just want to check the chat. If people do have questions along the way, please go ahead and type them in too, and I'll just check my chat screen every so often. So okay, so analyzing the video, we're going to start with the feet and work our way up. So foot strike, there's a couple different things we're going to look at here. Well, more than a couple, but we'll look at how your foot is hitting and also where it's hitting. So I'm going to start out with how your foot is hitting. And the first thing to look at here, and this is, so I'm looking at this from foot strike. We film from behind. I guess, sorry, one thing I should have mentioned before when I was talking about cameras. So I said that you can take these videos anywhere with any kind, with an iPhone camera. Then I analyze everything using Coach's Eye software, which is free. It's an app that you can get. Then you take the video. You can take it, if you're using it for yourself, you can take it in Coach's Eye instead of, just take it through that app. But if you're getting video from someone else, you can save it in your iPhone or Android and then import it into Coach's Eye where you do your analysis. And you'll see on screens coming up here that I'm going to do, that I will go through and show you some analysis on here. So first of all, this is just visually looking here. So this first factor is just a visual, no measurement thing, wanting to look, are you a heel, midfoot, forefoot striker? And as a distance runner, so long as you're heel or midfoot, like I've come from the philosophy that I don't change, like do radical changes. If someone's a heel striker, it's fine. Most people are heel strikers. And as we get fatigued, they tend to be more heel strikers. So if you come in as a heel striker, I'm not going to try to make you a midfoot striker. You don't want to be a forefoot striker as a distance runner. I mean, you always want to find your way that you can put your heel down somewhere, but this is kind of observational. One thing too, that there's some people that are heel strikers on one foot and midfoot strikers on another one. And that's like, something that you might want to look at because that will impact run technique and make you imbalanced. So the next one to look at is pronation. And this one does become important. So pronation sometimes gets a bad rep, but it's a good thing. We do want to pronate. So pronating mean that there's some turn in. So as you land, we land on the heel, roll in, towards the arch, and then toe back out again through the second toe, through toe off. So you see that as you go through. But what we're really looking for is if there's overpronation. So if there's a lot of rolling in, or if you have supination, so a lot of rolling out. And I actually overpronate on one foot and supinate on the other foot. So that creates some interesting things with trying to work on run technique. Another thing that I like to look at is if your feet point in or out. You see a lot of people. So the runner here on the right, you notice that she's got a toe out over here, and that's going to impact how she runs. And so there's work to do there with both flexibility and strength to try to pull her back in. So limiters tend to be with foot strike is that you have weak abductor muscles, so the muscles on the outside of your upper hip area, upper leg area, and adductor muscles, the muscles in the inside, plus flexibility, hip flexor flexibility.
I'm going to go in the other room for a minute, okay? Sorry, no, it's okay.
All right, so the next question here is on where do we land? And this is a pretty important one, and it's the answer to this. You can look at it here, but the cause for it is on stuff that we're going to look at later. So where does your foot land relative to your body? So I'm sure that you guys, the people have heard all the time, you want to land with your feet underneath you. And that's, you want to basically do that as much as you can. So your feet are underneath your body when they land. We see a lot with people that they land with their foot in front of them. And so you end up with an overstriding. So one of the common run errors that people do is that they try to get distance or lengthen their stride by reaching out in front of them rather than shortening up their stride and picking up their cadence. So here's just looking at that. So how you measure this is you pretty much do a point down from the tip of your nose straight down, and you want your foot to be underneath your body as much as possible. So you see with this runner that there's some overstriding, that she's landing ahead of her body. So this is a pretty easy, one to look at. What I did is we took the video. I went in with the measurement tool, drew a straight line down, did a screenshot, and that's what we have to look at. So what's the downside to overstriding is that you end up with a lot of braking. So if your foot lands in front of you, then your body now has to pass over your foot. So you end up with considerably more ground contact time as your foot's sitting on the ground waiting for your body to go over it. You're braking, so your speed is slowing down every time over there. So if you can make changes to your running form to get your foot underneath your body, then now you're going to be able to reduce your ground contact time and minimize that braking over your body, and then be able to turn it over faster. So improving your cadence, and that in turn is going to improve your speed. So where your foot lands is going to be impacted by both your upper torso position. So if you are a more vertical runner, like this runner is an example, then it's harder to get your feet underneath you. And then the other issue is actually on hip extension, which is how, which we're going to go through later, but basically it's how open you're getting your leg back behind you. And that's sort of one you're like, why does that have anything to do with it? And it's really because if you open up through your hips, then you end up with a higher recovery. So your foot, your back leg, your knee is more bent, your heel is closer to your butt. And because of that, you've got a shorter swing distance than if your foot is hanging down. A shorter swing distance means you can bring your leg forward a lot quicker and then get your foot down faster. So that's why your hip extension can really also have an impact on where your foot is landing in front of you. So that's just one, and we'll go through that more when we go through the hip extension body lean discussions. Okay, going to the next one, and I've used different models throughout. I am in here a bunch of times, so it was kind of fun analyzing myself and then making some changes to my run technique based on what I saw. So hip extension. So as I mentioned, it's how far behind your body does your leg extend during the recovery phase. So we're measuring it here at the push off. So you're looking, when you do go and you look at the camera, if you look here at my back leg, you see it's right as I'm touching off from my back leg. So my foot is just barely on the floor. The next frame would have my heel start kicking up. So it's right that last point. So this is going to be your most open over here, and you measure it from vertical. So you're looking for a minimum of 16-degree extension. And I'm going to say that's definitely a minimum. You want to see, like, ideally you're seeing at least 20 to 30 degrees on here. This picture is taken at 5K finish pace, probably like 3K pace. So you're going to see, in general, you're going to see more hip extension at quicker paces than you will at slower paces. So if I did the same filming with me doing a Z1 run, I wouldn't have the same amount of extension. But so that's why this extension is one reason why I have such big extension here. So you also want to look at a difference between sides. You want to obviously have as close to the same on both sides as you can, because a lot of time it's the injuries come because you're imbalanced, because one side is different from the other, rather than having the same problem on both sides. So you always want to look at both sides to see if you can pull out any differences. So limiters here, flexibility, hip flexor flexibility. So basically the top of your leg where your leg meets your hip area, that is a tight muscle for people. And one little thing that I always have people check their hip flexibility is if you're standing tall and you bend one knee, so your foot is back behind you. It's basically a standing hamstring curl. Just do whatever is natural. Bend your knee and then look down, or look at yourself in a side mirror. If your quads are even with each other, or the quad on the lifted leg is behind the other one, then you probably are okay with your hip flexor flexibility. If you bend that knee and you look up and your knee's ahead of it, then that's an area you probably need to do work. And you see that a lot when I have people try to do standing hamstring work. A lot of the time that front knee, like it's a conscious thing to have to pull back and open through. So here you can improve your hip extension by working on your flexibility, your psoas and upper quad flexibility. So good hip extension is going to lead to higher run cadence. And that's what I talked about a little earlier today. And as I go through the pictures, maybe I'll just do it with some of the future pictures. So here are just a couple other runners, and you're looking at them. And so these two have, these are fine extensions. I think these are all done at relatively easy pace. So you're going to see less, but they're, it's visually, even without measuring, you can see that these are, this is less open, less extension than the picture before. Okay, so hip extension, same, next shots from the same three runners here. So with the more open extension, you end up with a higher recovery. So you see that my heel is pretty close to my butt as it comes up. So there's no, if someone looked at me from the front, they wouldn't see my foot dragging through it all. Like you just see the knee, and that's the lowest point. As we go here, the runner that had the least extension, you see as through her recovery here, she doesn't have as much of that recoil. It kicks. So if I'm looking at that runner from the front, I'm going to see her whole foot. The runner in the middle, I'm going to see like half of her foot. So the longer the lever is, the slower it is as it runs through. So it's going to take longer for the longer lever to come through in front. And then that's what's going to impact your cadence. Okay, so staying with the hip, but now different look. So hip drop is the side to side drop. So we're not looking now at forward and back, but we're looking at right and left hip drop. So this you're looking at from the rear. You're going to do measurements from the rear side, and you're looking for the amount of hip drop on the non-weight bearing side. So where you measure this when you're looking at the video, where you're going to do your freeze, your pause, is where the point of weight transfer on the front leg. And you'll measure it from horizontal. So I do have I'll have some measurements coming up on the next screen. And you're looking for something that's less than 10 to 12 degrees and looking at the differences in between sides. So limiters here, the reason that you tend to find hip drop is weak glute medius or TFL, which are again your smaller muscles on the outside in your glutes and the outside of your hip area. I think I have a couple of questions, so I'm just going to take a look here. Yeah, just a reminder for people, if you don't have your mute button on, please go ahead and put it on because we are getting some background noise here. Okay, those are easy questions for me to handle. All right, let's go on. Okay, all right, so what just happened? Okay, so here we go. I'm the model again on this one. So I measured myself in my hip drop, and I told you that we're looking for something that's less than 10 to 12 degrees. So theoretically, looking at the picture on the left, my hip drop's just fine. It's not like excessive, but the difference here, what's important is the difference between the right and the left. And that's a pretty significant difference here. So it's good to be able to see that and say, okay, I really need to continue to work on my strength work through my hips to try to even things out. So that was something, having looked at this, I did. And there's a lot, like you'll see, there's a few issues that are going on with my left foot, with the foot turning out and with the drop of the hip. So if you look here on the left picture, I'm just going to walk it through. So we have a weak right glute medius. So I'm weak right through here, which is going to result in a left-sided hip drop. So, and then this is basically making my body lean and causing a zigzag pattern a little bit here. The drop isn't so bad, so you're not seeing a ton of stuff going on here, but you can definitely see that there's a difference here. And one thing with a hip drop is that if you find yourself with significant drop, then basically it means, now instead of 10-degree drop, like now I'm really shifting down to the side. That means I've got to come back up again before I move forward. So the hip drop is not only putting a ton of stress through your hips because of that, but it's also slowing down your cadence. So trying to get yourself back up and have less lateral movement is going to both decrease the likelihood of injury and, well, all three, make you fatigue less quickly and also make you go faster. Okay, so next one is the upper torso position. So we are looking for a nice, tall position, but with a forward lean. And it's not a massive lean. We're talking 5 to 10 degrees. So in this picture, I have a 7-degree lean. So I'm looking from vertical to basically my ears. That's where the line gets drawn. You go from the waist and you go through your ears, and then you go from the waist and you go vertical. And that's how you measure your degree. You're looking at this on the same at the same shot as you would your extension through your hips. So it's right at the toe off from the back leg. And the forward lean is great because it's about free speed. If you're standing, if you think about this, if you're standing tall and you're just standing like that, you're not going to go forward or backwards. If you're leaning forward, sooner or later, you're going to lean enough that your feet are just going to have to come down in front of you. You're forced to move. If you're leaning backwards, you might fall backwards. We want to take advantage of that free speed. So providing some forward momentum with the lean. And here, one of the limiters for leaning, one of it is your calf flexibility. If you can't get flexibility through that rear calf over there to open up, then you're not going to be able to lean forward. That's just as so to work on improving forward lean, we work on our calf flexibility. And one of the other ones is cognitive. Like a lot of times people just lean back, they go back on their heels. I'm tired, and it's really a safer position to be back on your heels, and we go back, or we don't know that we're supposed to lean forward. So I love doing like lean forward drills where you just start standing up and let yourself fall forward and get used to that and understand where that free flow comes from. I also love this great drill that I learned with Bobby McGee, that he calls from the ridiculous to the sublime, where you start out with like absolutely horrendous running technique, like everything is really floppy and loose and your arms are all over the place. And then you slowly fix your technique as you go through, and you finish with that nice, like really like solidness through your core and pushing your lean. And you just see like how much faster you go as you make those corrections. So here it's again, it's like reminding yourself, and what are those triggers that you can say to yourself to remind yourself to lean forward. So the forward lean, it helps increase your cadence. It better sets you up for the proper foot strike as well. And I'm just going to take a quick look here because we do have some comments here. So I did have, let's see, a couple questions that just came up. Hip drop difference relating to pronation, supination. Maybe. I think the pronation, supination is actually more due to the hip and the difference of the hip stability. I also do have a leg length discrepancy. So I think that that's part of it. But the strength in the insides and outside of your legs can definitely impact your foot strike. But one thing too is that getting the right running shoes is hugely important too. So you could potentially, like, if the reason you're getting hip drop, you could try different shoes. If the reason that you're getting some drop is because of overpronation, then finding a different pair of running shoes may be the key for you too. So that's another thing. And the next question, best exercises to prevent hip drop are going to be lateral stability exercises. So one of my favorite things, I do a lot of work with, I mean, just even like side leg raises, whether they're standing on the floor, or work with like resistance bands, monster walks, things like that are great. Single leg squats are another good exercise for it. Lateral lunges, anything that's working like that side to side stability. And I work both internal and external muscles there, both the lateral muscles on it. And core strength is also important as well. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so here are just two examples of sort of an underlean and an overlean. So the runner here on the left, she has, when I was looking at her video, she has just really fantastic run form on so many levels, but she's a really vertical runner. Maybe off the treadmill, she wouldn't be, because I said your run technique is definitely a little different on the treadmill, but trying to see a few degrees of lean, I think would help with her speed. The runner on the right is extremely leaned over. And this is, having looked at her video, I think that she was doing this to try to get herself up to speed quickly, but you don't want to see a lean of 22 degrees. Like that's just too much. Too much of a lean, and then you're starting to see a bend in the waist and reaching out with her legs and overstriding, and so there's just coming up. That's too leaned. And that, again, without doing any measurements, you could just look at those, the three runners and see the differences in the lean. Okay. Next one we're going to do is talk about arm position. And this is both the bend of the arm and also shoulder rotation. So for arm bend, ideally you want to see less than 90 degrees. And similar throughout. So you'll see with a lot of runners, you'll see like kind of like a wood chopping technique where they're really tightly bent in the front and then they chop down when they get to their sides. That's something you don't want to see. Like you want to see a nice even the whole, similar the whole way through. With this runner, you see her hand as it comes down, it's hitting right at the hip, and that's a perfect place for it to be. And the hands are inside of the elbows. It's really, really good upper body position here. Nice. And then there's also the rotation. So sometimes you look at yourself and you're like, why are my arms swinging over? And I'm going to say the arm swing, you have to find out what the reason for the arm swing is. You want an arm swing that comes from rotation. So if you think like kind of as you're sitting in your chair right now, I want you to take both of your elbows and bend them and put them in your running form and start pulling your elbows behind you, thinking about keeping them close to your body. As you do that, you're going to naturally start rotating. That's just what's going to come from it. And that might look like your arms are crossing over your body, but that cross is coming from the rotation. That's really different than taking your arms and swaying them side to side. So you want the openness in through the chest, and that's a nice tall position, and you get the rotation, kind of like in the pool where you're getting your rotation. So that's a good thing. If you want to think about your elbows, when you're in the recovery phase, they're pointing back and like somebody is pulling you back. So they're closer to your body in the recovery. I mean, they're more like straight in the recovery phase, but then as they come forward and the other side is recovering, they're going to cross over your body a little, and that's fine. But like everything, you want to look at the differences between sides. Sometimes you'll see a hip weakness gets manifested by the opposite elbow. So if I have so my left hip is dropping, that's due to my right hip being weak. And my right arm is going to try to compensate for that by dropping down and sort of trying to even out my body. So if you go and you're looking at your own technique and you see one arm that's dropping more than the other, or one elbow that's kicking out more than the other, take a look down and see what's going on in your hips, and you'll probably find something. So the arms might be just telling you something. Limiters here, so hip weakness, as I just mentioned, causes some responsiveness in the arms. Weak rotational core strength is lack of shoulder rotation, and so you want a really nice, strong core and one that works in motion. So planks are amazing, but doing mountain climbers is better than doing planks, and doing some rotational work with your core to get it strong. And, honestly, we spend so much time in our computers and on our phones and all this time that we sit there like staring down and rolling our shoulders forward. So we need to work on our shoulder flexibility and opening through the chest, or chest flexibility, to keep open. And then the other thing with the arms, there's a huge piece of it that's cognitive. A lot of time people think that they're supposed to chop their arms, or they don't realize what's going on. And sometimes you can make changes like, I think, trying to see, no, I didn't do one of me. I'm going to come back, but my arms, I had good bend in a part of my technique, but then my arm opened up in some of it. So I went out and I just started focusing on keeping my elbow bend. By doing that, I was touching my thumb to my first two fingers. And just by holding that position, it made me so much more aware of what was going on with my upper body. And I made a giant change to my arm position by doing that. And my run has felt a lot better since then. So sometimes when I go to work on people's run technique, I actually don't start with the legs at all. I start with the arms and make some things, because as just like on this runner, you can see how open her arm is. And that openness, like I talked about with the leg, if your arm is more extended, it's just going to be slower. So it takes more time to swing a straight arm from back to front than it takes to swing a bent arm, because of just the lever length. And so the arms can end up serving to hinder your cadence. So just tightening your arms can start cleaning things up in the legs as well sometimes too. And here's an athlete too. We actually worked on her arm position quite a bit, and her hands and what was going on here. So her arms weren't helping her get the speed that she needed to. And there's definitely some hip weakness too. So the arms, I think we're trying to balance through with the hips. Okay, last one is on head position. This one's pretty simple. You basically just want to be neutral with the body. Your head's neutral with the body. Your eyes are looking forward or just slightly down. So how I look at the head is just like you want to stand tall, look forward. Looking down is going to come because of a forward lean. So as your body tilts forward, your vision is going to go down a little bit, but you definitely don't want your head tilted back. You start tilting your head back, your whole body's going to go with it. If you start looking down at the ground right next to your feet, you're probably going to start curling over and looking at the thing. So looking at the ground, your body's going to curve and not be in the strong position. So it's just like, neutral head position. And people have all different, how many feet in front of you you're supposed to look. But basically you just, keep it neutral, follow the lean. And that's my recommendation. And to me, the biggest limiter on this is cognitive. Most people can hold their heads up, they can put their head where they just need to think about where they're putting it. All right, so we're going to go to now, what do you do once you've identified some of your weaknesses? What do you look at? So in strength, there's a few, there's just really a few muscles that we focus on for strength. As I said, they're not really like the muscles you think of as the main running muscles. They're more the supporting muscles. So we have your rotational, your core strength, and then your abductor muscles, your glute medius, and your TFL. So those are the small, right up here, glute med and TFL, which is longer here, and it goes down to the side, but they're your lateral muscles, right? So I'm not showing you these in the front, I'm showing you over here. I'm not showing you your big glute muscle, I'm not showing you your hamstring, I'm showing you right here on the side. And then you have your soleus muscle, which is the longer muscle in your calf, and your inner quad muscle here. So through there is another area that tends to be weak in runners. And then range motion flexibility. So hip flexor flexibility, which is basically like right in here. And hip flexor flexibility, your soleus again, and then your chest, your pecs, and that has more to do with your rotation, your ability to have good upper body rotation. The other limiter is cognitive. Again, knowing what you're supposed to do and remembering what you're supposed to do and reminding yourself what you're supposed to do when you start getting really tired. So I think everyone, like whenever I try to teach these things, I'm like, what cue works for you? Figure out the cue that works for you. You're like, I know that when I get tired, I start leaning back on my heels. So when that happens, what are you going to tell yourself? And come up with some good cues to get you back on track. Shoes, again, they're a limiter. There's so many running shoes out there. You have to find the pair that are good for you, that get you into a good position. The shoes that I was wearing, I think that they fit me great, but when I looked at the film, I was seeing that they didn't have enough stability through the ankles, so they were causing me some ankle rolling too. And then on the bike, and this is important to mention, as triathletes, we spend so much time in that really like that bent over position, which does a number in terms of tightening through your hip flexor muscles. So when people get off the bike and they start running, that has an impact. Like if you can go and do a really great run warm up and then go for a run, your run is going to look different than you're coming after you've come off of 112 miles on the bike and you're really tight. So bike is important, but it's something as triathletes we're going to be riding. For the triathletes on here, you're going to be riding your bike. There's nothing that you can change about the fact that you're going to be riding your bike, but maybe it's something that if you have problems with your running, it might be due to your bike position. And so going in and getting your bike fit looked at might be something to do as well. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears and talk about advanced run metrics. So I'm going to go through what you see on Garmin Connect. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff doesn't go over into Training Peaks. So if you want your coach to look at this stuff, like you have to share your Garmin file or just take a screenshot of some of this stuff and share. But you get some really good data. So in addition, like if you have a Coros watch or some of the Polar watches, or you use a stride power meter, you can get a lot of this same data, but I'm just going to use Garmin as the example here. And the things to look at. So not all watches have this data, but if you have it, it's really, I think it's super helpful to look at it. So the first thing is cadence, and most watches do have that. So cadence is steps per minute, and sometimes you're going to see the number looking at right and left, both of them together, and that's what you see here. And sometimes you're going to only look at one side. So for anyone who's in the QT2 systems family, I mean, how often have you looked at a run workout that says run cadence 88 to 92? So, or if you're looking at it in double, and looking at both feet, 176 to 184. And we look at that, and that's ideal. So Garmin has these little color codes, and you can look them up about what they mean. But here, this is from one of my runs. My average cadence was 175. So I'm slightly below where I want to be. Purple is, I think on theirs, like purple is the best, and then blue, and then it gets in like to the yellows and reds. So it layers you into what percentage of the population sort of fits in. So the color code helps you, but it can also, one thing to look at with cadence is not only what your cadence is, but if you're doing speed intervals, if your cadence is changing based on the pace that you run, or if your cadence on a run starts out high and drops as you go, or if it starts out low and builds as you go. It's just some information you can see, because if your run cadence is different, then chances are there's something going on with your running form that's changing throughout the run. The next thing is stride length. And we talked a little bit today about overstriding and reaching out in front of you. So speed and stride length comes from the kick behind you. So it's part of the extension. So if you're able to get a longer extension, then you can get a longer stride length. That's where it comes from. The kick from behind, and then the quick recoil and coming in front. It doesn't come from trying to grab the ground in front of you. You get in trouble once you try to grab the ground in front of you. That's where you result in the braking. We see a lot of injuries. So people who are trying to get the speed by increasing their stride length from the front. So stride length should be something. Cadence in general should be the same or at a pretty close range, regardless of your speed. Stride length should get longer the faster you run. That's basically the guidance there. So the next one, vertical ratio and vertical oscillation. So I'm a tremendously vertical runner, and I've been working on that. And sometimes I'm more successful than others. But what they are, vertical ratio, I'm going to start with vertical oscillation, which is the one on the bottom. So that just measures basically how much up and down you're going. And if you look at it logically, the more up and down you are, the less forward you're going. You want your movement to go forward, and you don't want to waste your energy going up and down. So the up and down, though, can be due to a few things. One, it could be due to overstriding and then having to slow. As you slow down to go over your body, you tend to see more knee bend. So you're going down as you bend your knee and coming back up. You could see it from there. You could see it because of weaker hips. You could also see it just because you're a springier runner. And when you toe off and you're not leaning forward, you're toeing off going up, which is what I tend to do. That's my issue. So, but again, this is something that you can look at through the course of the run, and also look at different speeds. If you've got, if your vertical oscillation numbers change, the faster I run, the lower my oscillation is, because I tend to lean more. I lean more when I run faster. So my vertical numbers go down, because then I'm toeing off going forward instead. Vertical ratio is looking at the oscillation versus stride length. So if you're going really high, but you have really long strides, then your percentage is going to go down. So that's just another factor to look at. And then, so ground contact time, I'll do that one first again. So that's how much time your foot is on the ground. And this is where I mentioned if you're overstriding, or you've got a lot of just knee bend somewhere, you've got hip drop, then you're going to see a lot longer ground contact time. You're also going to see longer ground contact time if you're running slower. That's just going to happen as well. But this is just an area that that you can look at as another indicator that maybe there's something going on with your run technique, that if you have a lot of between cadence and ground contact time. If you've got a low cadence and a high ground contact time, then there are definitely ways that you can improve your form and get yourself running faster. And then the ground contact balance looks at right to left, and you want that 50-50. That's what you're aiming for. That's clearly ideal. If you go through and you see those numbers and they're telling you like 47, 53, you are probably injured. You may not know it yet, you may not feel it yet, but you're probably injured. So if you start seeing something that you see a lot of imbalances, then the first thing that I do with that is take a look at my shoes and see if I'm starting to wear them a little differently, and just be like more aware of what's going on. But you don't want to see like, you'll get to, let's say 51, 49, and don't get too stressed about it. But if you start seeing a lot of differences, then you really need to look into it and see what's going on one side versus the other, and try to make corrections to balance yourself out. And that's it for the presentation. Sorry. I will mention, so my goal today was basically to give you enough information, hopefully, to give some things to look at, like to have your coach informally look at your run, or to have, yourself to do some videos and just take a look. I think it just helps to be able to see ourselves and what we do. If you want to do something that's more formal, we do have a run analysis service where myself and another coach can go through and look at all your videos and do a specific report for you. So if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to myself or to Beth Peterson and get information on that. And anyone that's in any of the QT2 brands or with Team and Training does get a discount on that service as well. So I'm going to unshare my screen now, and I just want to see if anyone has any questions that they want to ask. Everything. All right. Without having any questions here, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Please feel free to reach out at any time if anything comes up. And thank you for attending. And we'll hope to see everyone out there at some point. Bye for now.